Hi there. Sorry we're a little late tonight, but Roberta, my mother-in-law, had another episode after they moved her out of ICU. Her heart started racing and it's out of rhythm still. However, they've given her more medication and they're monitoring her very closely. And I thank you. I'm sure that everyone in the family thanks you for praying for Roberta and my father-in-law as well, and everyone involved. So, another prayer update I have is that Bill Bosco is on the mend. I guess you could say for the second time. His reopening went well, and he's still on that vacuum thing to keep him from getting any more infection in his incision. Although he's still very weak, I'm sure, but certainly want to continue praying for Bill and the others that are on your bulletin as well. So, I've been reading parts of a book entitled The Mortification of Sin by an old dead guy, like 450 years dead. His name is John Owen. I really had never read anything by John Owen. I've heard of him. And I was studying about temptation on Monday, as that's what our message will be about this coming Sunday. And as I was studying about temptation, his book came to mind because it just has always stuck with me, The Mortification of Sin. And I know mortification isn't a word that we use hardly ever. In fact, I don't know if I've ever used it other than quoting that particular verse. But mortification, and this is Brother David's definition. Mortification means putting to death sin in the life of the believer. Putting to death sin in the life of the believer. The illustration that one writer used reminded me of my yard work I was involved with on Monday. I hope you can follow my mowing experience and gain something from it as this illustration. And so here's my analogy. Christians often mow over their sin instead of pulling it up by the roots. Christians often mow over their sin instead of pulling it up by the roots. That's why I'm convinced we often never truly get rid of habitual sin. We keep mowing over them with our weekly confessions, as it were. And the only trouble with that is by next week when we come back, not only has the sin/weed come back, it's spread. Mortification would involve pulling the sin out by the root so that it won't grow back or spread, which is what I did with weeds for about 30 minutes on Monday. And then that's what kind of got me thinking about that. So, have you ever tried to stop doing something that you know you shouldn't do or you don't want to do? In particular, habitual sin that you have a very hard time with just by mowing over it. I remember saying I wasn't going to do this or that 100 times. And I would ask God to forgive me and keep me from committing a particular sin again and again and again. But for some reason, my willpower never seemed up to the task. So some of you know what I'm talking about, I'm sure. I don't think I'm alone in that. One that comes to my mind is when I was a young man, my decision to quit drinking alcohol. I was in a parking lot at the OU Texas game after the game. And I said, I'm going to stop this. This is senseless. It's not who I am. However, when I realized what I'd said, I realized that I had only mowed over that particular sin. And so when I got back to Norman, I knew that I had to pull the weeds out by the roots. And that meant not going to places that I used to like to frequent. It meant that I wasn't strong enough to hang out with certain people who always liked to drink alcohol whenever they were having a party or whatever it might be. In other words, I had to give up friendships as well. But once I'd finished pulling all the roots and the alcohol weeds, if you will, from my lawn, it really looked beautiful. And there still were things here and there, but it just looked so much nicer. And I felt much nicer, much cleaner. So, did it work? Did it help? Well, I know this. It's been over 50 years. And a few years after I quit, I married a teetotaler who wouldn't have given me a second look had I not been one too. I close by asking you this very personal question. What habitual sin or sins has its grip on your life right now? The only way I know to deal with such sins are to pull them up by the roots. If you need help, I would recommend reading through the Proverbs on a regular basis. It's full of good advice. One verse from the New Testament that I've used hundreds of times, I've memorized it over the years. It's from Philippians 4:8. I'll be talking about it a little bit Sunday too. It says, finally, brothers, and it's whatever your translation is, this is the ESV, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. I strongly recommend you memorizing that verse and then repeating it every time a sinful temptation enters into your mind. I can testify from my own experience. You may be quoting that verse 15, 20, 30 times a day, especially when it comes to overcoming your tongue and your thoughts, two of my worst. Think good thoughts. Memorize Philippians 4:8. And the next time you've got a bad thought in your mind, or you say something you shouldn't, you shouldn't, repeat that verse out loud if necessary. And it will help you immensely. That did me. Still does. So, think good thoughts. The rest of the week, pray, if you will, for Roberta. And remember,